You are listening to What I Know for Sure, the podcast, where we talk about hard truths in business, life, and manage to create an impactful community of learning, growth, and positive humans loving on each other. I'm your host, Callie, entrepreneur, fractional COO, and podcaster. Welcome back. I hope everybody had a good week. Today, we are going to sort of continue the conversation within the goals, because I think an underlying goal that each one of us needs to have is setting boundaries within our business. I recognize that a lot of people that are in sort of my community of people are service-based businesses. So a lot of coaches, a lot of marketing strategists, a lot of brand strategists. And so when you are that type of person with the main goal of helping others, we all know how important it is to be functioning our best. And so when you're sort of in this helping profession, you are literally your greatest asset. And you rely on your special skill set, whatever that is, right? If you're a marketing person, if you are an OBM, if you are a virtual COO, all of those things, you are an expert in your field. And so you rely on that skill set that you have built over the years of your business to show up and do your work. Using your intuition, your listening skills, and your ability to guide through these difficult life transitions all require that you show up centered and present. And not only are you working through your difficult life transitions, but your clients, right? They show up and they need specific things from you that you have to sort of quote unquote be on to be able to help them get to their higher self. And in order to function at your best and have the greatest impact on your clients, you have to have some sort of boundaries that you are setting in your business, within yourself, to be able to achieve all of this. So first, I just want to briefly touch on what are these business boundaries. We talk about what's a boundary. And so sometimes that information sort of gets skewed, but simply put, business boundaries are strict guidelines that you have in place so that when you're doing your best work, serving your clients, you can do that powerfully and still feel rested and energized. And these guidelines help protect your energy and manage your client relationships so that you continue to not only gain revenue, because you are putting everyone sort of in a bucket, including yourself, in setting these boundaries, but it also eliminates the things like burnout, miscommunication, and upset clients. And what happens when you don't set those boundaries is you try to do everything all at the same time. You become sort of this multitasker person that your energy suffers because you are trying to compact and do all of the things. And then you sort of develop this resentment towards your clients and you feel super overwhelmed. And it's not just maybe your clients, it's maybe your family who are putting demands on your time. And that leads to burnout. It leads to having a breakdown. It leans on not serving your clients as well as you could. But ultimately, your sleep, your health, and other parts of your life start suffering, especially your relationships with other people. And while you have a well-intentioned plan, it can go south very quickly without setting these strong boundaries. And if you're not careful, at the end of the day, you literally physically could end up suffering. And the benefits of having these boundaries in place are when you're a business owner, it's your responsibility to protect yourself at all costs. It's your responsibility to set a boundary for your business so that you can continue to scale. And it's your responsibility to manage your relationships with your clients. When you do all of those things, you protect the gifts that you have and you are able to use them to the best of your ability, but also you manage your own time and energy and your productivity increases. right? When you have a well laid out calendar, when you are time blocking, when you are creating those boundaries within your work hours, your productivity increases because you know that you have limited amount of time to get things done. But I would also say be okay with not having everything done. And that is why making lists is super important. That is why having a top of mind view of what needs to get done, what is hot for that day is super important. But also, you end up strengthening your client relationships and build trust by being super transparent, just sort of on what it is they can expect, where you are with everything, and then if you need additional help in that area. But most importantly, setting boundaries with yourself means that the better you take care of yourself, the better you can serve, right? We've all heard that phrase of you can't pour from an empty cup, and that is so true. And what this means for you and your needs is tuning into what that is, tuning into what exactly you need, stepping back and having the 500-foot view between you and your business and saying, in my intuitive mind, what am I going to pay close attention to when I start to suffer? And this is important because when you start to pay attention to yourself as much as you do your clients, and every day you ask yourself, what do I need exactly right now? You're able to serve yourself at a higher level, which then in turn is able to serve your business at a higher level. And when you prioritize quality over quantity in terms of your clients, this is where you really start to be able to serve powerfully. I know a lot of times when people start ramping up and collecting their business, I did this as well. You sort of take on clients that will generate revenue, right? Because you're so desperately trying to get out of this corporate environment that you've been. You really want to get your business off the ground, and that is okay. But then there's this pivotal time where you start to unhinge and start to get overwhelmed. And that is because your ideal client is not the one that you are servicing. The ideal amount of clients is the number of clients you can serve powerfully while allowing plenty of time to tend to yourself. It's working on the projects that you love dearly. It's taking on the clients that match your most favorite client where you are the most productive. And then you're able to find your sweet spot and stay there. So if you're wrestling with sort of finding out what is my ideal client, come over into my Instagram. Let's have a conversation. I'd love to ask you some key questions in order to get you thinking about what that is. No strings attached. I just want you to be able to feel fulfilled. And that really, honestly, is the very first key with working within boundaries. Where do you feel fulfilled? And then stop comparing and shoulding all over yourself. I should do this. I should do that. XYZ. I did that a ton. And, just because another business owner can, live on Instagram live all day and sit on Clubhouse all day and pull 10-hour work days, that doesn't mean that they should, but that you should either. You need to do you, and you need to find a rhythm that works best for you, that works best for your family. And I would caution to say that if you are in a marriage, if you are in a relationship, it really needs to be the focus of what is best for this relationship, and am I doing too much? Because on a very personal level, I will share with you, my husband had to have the conversation with me many of times of like, I see you working, until 8 o'clock at night. Like, this is not healthy. And I appreciate him so much for bringing that to light. And while he understands that there is this sort of hustle that I need to have within my business of building, there's also the time of he's gone for 12 hours a day, and he really truly at the end of all of this, right, when the world slows down and I am no longer working and he is no longer working, we have each other. And if I am not prioritizing our relationship, if I am not prioritizing what I need from our relationship as well as what he needs from our relationship, that can go south very quickly. And it leaves both of us sitting at the end of the relationship going, we don't have anything to talk about because I don't really know this person. And I don't ever want my relationship to get that like that. But very specifically, I don't want your relationship to get like that. So instead of saying, I should work, 8 hours, work 8 hours. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But you can do also way more by doing less. And when you focus on the few key important things and only do what is on your, top 3, top 10 list for the day, it allows you to not worry about the rest because in Matthew, right, it says today has enough worries of its own. And that is something that I have up next to me on my computer because it is so, so true. You can save your energy for what's most important and still be able to service at the high level that you're used to. And dare I say, people appreciate boundaries, right? People appreciate the fact that they can't contact you at midnight every day and warrant a response, that they can't contact you on the weekends because that's not your business hours. They appreciate that. I always within my business will tell my clients, you're more than welcome to send me 60 emails during the weekend. Nobody ever does, first of all. But set brain dump, right? Send me your ideas, send me your things. Just know that those things will not get answered or addressed until I am back in the office. And in my contract, I have it laid out exactly the explicit hours that I am available. Sometimes, if I'm working on a project, I will let that bleed a little bit, but most of what I try to do is within the hours of 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and that is that. When it comes to my own things, I have definitely adopted utilizing the before time and, cutting my day short if I have a lighter day to work on my business things. And I've definitely carved out that time within my schedule to make my business a priority. But I don't ever give someone the expectation that they just have 24/7 access to me because I am naturally an introvert. And so while I can get stimulated by other people, overstimulation really shuts me down and ultimately starts to create resentment. So think about that. Think about the type of person that you are and sort of where you are most stimulated. And after the stimulation comes, what happens? Do you feel resentful? Do you feel like you need to do more and be more? Because all of those things lead to burnout. All of those things really start to give you knowledge on where you are in your business. And if you're at the overwhelm stage, if you are at the way past boundaries stage, well, then that's a deep look that you need to have within your business and say, what am I doing here? What the heck is happening? Can I be doing more by doing less? Examples of setting these boundaries. Obviously, we talked about setting the work schedule. And here's the key thing. When you set the schedule, stick to it. Like that's a whole other thing, right? Like when we set the schedule, it's we can put that on the Google Calendar and we can create our cute little time blocking schedule, but sticking to it is another thing. And so what I have tend to do is like at 5 p.m. I have it noted on my calendar, go make dinner. Because then at like 4:50, I start shutting everything down. And even though we might not have dinner at 5, having a trigger within my calendar that says go make dinner, it naturally means like you need to leave your desk. I do a lot of my best work in the morning. And so I will take my clients that require a lot of day to day things and I have moved them to the beginning of my day because that's when my brain is super stimulated. Again, with clients that were working on big projects, I will move those to the top of my day so that I address those first. And then throughout the rest of the afternoon is, follow up and other things that we're doing. But Setting a work schedule is super important. And I know like we got out of the business of working in corporate because we didn't love the Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, whatever. I love that schedule and I am here for it. And so that is how I choose. But if you work better in the afternoon, if you work better on the weekends, whatever that is, however you want to set up your work schedule, the point is that when you make your work schedule, you are sticking to it and you're not overworking. I like to set myself a day every month where I do like a CEO day and I do a check-in of my business and really outline what is working and what is not working. Because I feel like when I do that, it allows me to better look at my weekly schedule and say to myself, where are the places that I can optimize my time and where are the places that I need to revisit in order to be able to match my happiness, but then also match the happiness of my clients. And another big thing is when you have a set work schedule, start saying no. Say no to the things that are not on your priority list. No is a powerful word, and it does not have to come with an excuse. So if you are not conditioned to say no, there are many options, such as that's not going to work for me. I'm sorry, I have other obligations during that time. Sorry, but I can't make that happen. And leave it at that. It doesn't need to be an excuse of why you can't do the thing or what have you. It simply is I'm sorry that doesn't work for me. And that's okay. Again, people appreciate boundaries, but saying no more often than you say yes allows the opportunities for you to really take on the things that you enjoy. And when we talk about not taking on things that you don't enjoy, it's also not taking on more client work than when you're at your max. Being super transparent with your clients is something that is so valuable. And again, they love this. They love transparency. And so when you're in a meeting and like myself, I'm a service provider. So we go over the things and I let them sort of daydream. And then we talk about what it means to put those into a task list. And sometimes it's having the conversation of we need to hire someone else because a lot of these things are little stuff, but it takes up a huge chunk of my time on what they're paying for. And then it allows the client to say, okay, I can really evaluate this and I can say, what are the most important things that I need to have done so that she can do her best work. And part of that is not overscheduling yourself with calls and meetings too, right? Setting that boundary of not overscheduling yourself with your client meetings or, other onboarding meetings, whatever that is. Having a set hour of the day. So like maybe between 3 and 5 is when you do all of your onboarding calls and, in the morning, your client calls, whatever that looks like. I want you to remember that you setting boundaries with how many calls that you take is crucial to your mental happiness. It is a lot of brain power, and I know all of you could be raising your hand right now. It is a lot of brain power to sit on a new client call and really unpack exactly where they are at their business and where you need to take it. Not to mention, after you leave the call, there's a ton of homework, right? Because you have to then build and do the things. So it can quickly become overwhelming, and not overscheduling allows you the opportunity to show up the same way you do for your current clients as you are when you're bringing somebody new. The final example of setting boundaries is not constantly giving free advice or showing up anytime you are asked. This circles back to saying no. It is different when you are producing content on social media. You are creating value. People like to do business with other people they know, like, and trust. And so there is a line in the sand when it comes between you providing content that you thoroughly enjoy and that you want to provide, to then allowing people to consistently tap into you for advice, to consistently ask you to, show up on other mastermind calls or do this call for you for free or what have you. Constantly giving this free advice and showing up anytime you're asked is overscheduling yourself, overworking yourself, and not allowing you to have rest. And having rest is the most important. We all know that we need to set clear guidelines with clients, but we usually do so reactively, meaning after something has gone wrong. So moving into setting boundaries with clients, it is super, super important to know the guidelines that you're going to set with them before you onboard them, so that from day one, they can have a clear expectation on how you run your business. And this really should be brought up when you're doing your introductory call, because this allows them to make an informed decision on whether or not you two are going to be a good fit. And so there is a time where sometimes setting boundaries with clients happen after either something starts to go wrong or you start to feel overworked. And that really is not a great time in order to be setting those boundaries, because now it's like, oh, you don't have time for me anymore. And what is this? We used to do X, Y, and Z. And while you can try to have those delicate conversations, it's still hard to have. And unfortunately, it puts you in a position of needing to ask for forgiveness for not completing your work, not fulfilling their request at your own risk of having burnout. And so the key here is really to set the expectations ahead of time, clearly communicate them, and most importantly, enforce them. You have to enforce them. You have to consistently remind them of your boundaries. It is not unfair to you. It is not unfair to them. It is not unfair for anyone that you are involved with to not have clear expectations, but most importantly, not to enforce them. And clear is kind. Can we say that again? Being clear is kind. And that is from Brené Brown herself. Communicating clear expectations in your contracts and verbally, when you spell out the things like when to expect a response in an email, what happens if they're late or don't show up, and what is expected of your client through the time that you work together, allows sort of this unspoken rule to always take place within your relationship. And it isn't on the back of anybody's mind if something does go wrong, or if you have hit some sort of a wall that now you have to work through, because you always have a reference point to go back to. Letting clients know when a request is outside of your scope of work and say no if it's something that you can't do or don't want to do is, again, being clear and being kind to them and allowing them the opportunity to then get serviced in the way in which they get from your service from someone else. Not taking on any more clients than you can empowerably serve is ultimately your sweet spot of being able to achieve all of this other stuff. And actively underscheduling yourself allows projects, allows meetings, allows additional things to sort of ebb and flow if there is run over, run off, things of that nature. So in my personal opinion, I wouldn't take on another client until you know for sure that you have the capacity and that you want to serve them. And I will say this, want to serve them is so, so key. When you are doing a discovery call with someone, and if you feel deep down in your gut that it's going to be too much work, that this person is really going to take up the bulk of your time, that, that they are exceeding the rule of the 10% or taking up 90% of your value, it is okay to say no and walk away from that. It is okay to leave the call, send them a nice email and say, you know what? It was super great meeting you. And I know that you have someone within your network that you can connect with that is going to be a good person for you to work with. I am not that person. And, maybe include a few recommendations of people that they would be able to reach out to. But Just because it's adding revenue doesn't mean that it's adding happiness. And so please always remember that. Remember that you were not put on this earth to serve everyone. You were put on this earth to serve the people that match your boundaries and your alignments. But to do that, what you need to do is your best work. In order to do that, you must set boundaries. When you show up as your highest self, you and your clients benefit. And honestly, you make the biggest difference in the lives of your clients. You make the biggest difference in the lives of you, your spouse, your family, and in the world. When you show up as the most powerful person, you are showing everyone that there is an opportunity for balance. You're showing everyone that you don't have to do the hustle and grind 24/7 just to make a dollar. Hustle culture is dead. Can we just say that out loud? Hustle culture is something that should have never started. You don't have to sleep 2 hours and work the other 22. That is done. It doesn't need to continue on. And you yourself are able to set up boundaries in order to combat that. As your own boss, as your own thought leader, as your own person that is showing up in your company, it is literally up to you to ensure that you are taking care of yourself. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to come and say, hey, Susie, I saw that you've been working 6 days a week. And, even on your 7th day, I see you at the coffee shop with your laptop. Man, don't you ever get a day off? Nobody's coming to say that. But what they will say is, oh my gosh, look at you. You're grinding. You're doing great. And meanwhile, in the midst of it, you're having a mental breakdown. That isn't fair to you, and it isn't fair to anyone else that's around you. And so when you come from a place of heavy energy and power and not a place of burnout and resentment, it ultimately just creates the best experience. And it allows you to consistently say, this is the reason why I left corporate. This is the reason why I started this. And when you communicate those clear guidelines with your clients, you manage expectations, create the clarity and trust in your relationship, and build stronger relationships. And so I have to ask you, what new boundaries are you going to set in your business? What new areas are you going to carve out in your calendar so that you can have peace? And if you're still struggling with sort of what that looks like, I'm happy to help. Thanks for listening to What I Know for Sure, the podcast. If you heard something today that helped you, I would love it if you would go leave a review, share it with your friends. This helps more people like you become inspired, just like you are. If you would like to learn more about how I can help you streamline and position your business for growth or start that business, feel free to jump into the show notes with all the links to find me. And don't forget to head over to Instagram so we can be pals.